I was telling somebody the other day that I know a lot of BTs. You were the first BT that I remember in my life. There's a lot of pressure.
I have a little running joke with Brian Thornton up north because everybody calls him, BT up in the North and Seattle area, but I make sure he knows that he's BT too.
I've told him that he's BT
He's
too.
great. He's a great guy.
He literally goes, "Oh, he deserves to be BT1. He's done a lot more."
I just saw a post yesterday. He won the TaylorMade regional tournament down in Ironwood, down in the desert. So pretty cool for him.
Yeah,
still playing at a high level.
He's still carrying the BT brand high.
He's carrying it better than I am right now. My playing days right now.
Well, it's one of those things. So Bryan Tunstill, that's why we call you BT. You and I went back all the way to the days when we were in high school, and I was just a kid finding the game of golf. I literally remember playing Progress in those days and not knowing that I was supposed to take the pin out of the hole in the first practice round. And Sean, I don't remember his last name, but Sean was the other really good player on the team.
I can't remember Sean's up there. Troy Thompson was the other pretty solid player my year too. Yeah.
Yeah. But Sean was a big guy, looked like he could play tight end, and he was just super nice to me. He could have just made absolute fun of me. And he didn't. That's actually, to this day, that a high school guy was a gentleman to somebody you didn't know. I've always admired that. Even though I don't know his name, I probably should figure it out because I've told that story a few times. But we go back to those days at Beaverton High School, and somehow I ended up in the business, and so did you. So how did that happen? I mean, after high school, again, some of the stories that I know, some of your stories, but how did you end up, getting into golf after high school? Like, how did you end up in the business?
Yeah, my older brother, Mark's a PGA professional. Mark Tunstill, who owns and operates Mauer Creek down in Lebanon, Oregon. He's 2.5 years older than I am, and he started to kind of play golf about the same time I really got hooked on golf. He didn't play in college. He was a baseball player. Beard had a great baseball team. They actually were state champions the year he was the senior. But he got hooked probably that summer after baseball, and we both started to play a lot. And then in college, we both went to U of O. I kind of followed him down to U of O. He got a job, I can't remember what year it was, maybe his sophomore summer, his junior summer at Oswego Lake Country Club. He started to work out there, and we both just started to compete and just tried to basically want to beat each other up all the time. And so that kind of fueled my competitiveness with him and then others, and kind of watching him succeed and watching me succeed back and forth was just really that was kind of where it started. Playing in high school, I was an okay player. I was pretty good. I got pretty good my senior year, but I wasn't like collegiate level play at any time. And U of O back in those days was, I actually tried to walk on. It wasn't that great of a golf school compared to now, where you have to be nationally or internationally ranked to think of that, elite program. But I think it really kickstarted for me when I got my first summer job working full time at a golf course and being around the game. I worked in the bag room at Oswego Lake Country Club, and literally would get off work and I'd practice until the sun went down, or I'd get there early and practice before I had my shift. And just playing every day and kind of go back to school. I'd go back to school and down in Eugene, and I'd just be thinking about, God, I wish I was playing golf somewhere. And, it's kind of focus when your true passion was golf. Getting out of college, I was a pretty good student. I was a scholarship kind of student going to U of O. I was valedictorian at Beaverton High School. But I just didn't want to spend the rest of my life in a job where I'm kind of seen like in a cubicle or a box or an office. I love the outdoors. Love to fly fish too. So just being outside, like being a golf pro, was like, man, what a great life that would be. And about that same time, I was mentored by not only my brother, who was an assistant there at the time, but the pro there was Brent Murray. And Brent was just someone I looked up to, like, wow, that is someone I could see myself working to achieve, to get to that level of he's just a great person and just a consummate professional. And I think that kind of fueled me to think, what would it be like to be a club professional? So that's kind of, for me, that's pretty much where it started, in that level right there.
So some takeaways there. I thought you were awesome because, again, at that point when I rolled out as a freshman, it was like, oh, these guys could shoot in the 30s, especially on that golf course in the mud, in the wet coming out of winter. What a to try to.
And that course, for those listening, that course is now called Red Tail Golf Course. It's a city owned course. Back in the day, it was called Progress Downs. It was not very good.
Yeah, it was a factory. I mean, it was literally a factory. It didn't have to be good. There was 300 rounds a day they were doing there.
Yeah.
They did have some pretty cool people there. I mean, Mike Davis was the head pro and Steve Bowen was the head pro.
Yeah, they always had good pros. Ralph
Yeah,
West, and they always had like
Jerry,
good playing professionals and
Jerry
teachers.
Minor, who's there?
Very minors there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I also remember too, be going at University of Oregon. I mean, Eugene is a great town, but it didn't necessarily have a lot of places to play if you weren't a member at Eugene. And I don't know about you. Did you ever go out to like up the hill to Laurelwood and just screw around just to get some work on your short game? Didn't matter what the weather was.
Not really, because at that time, my parents were getting divorced. We didn't really have a lot of money, and I didn't have a car, and I didn't quite have the means to like go play golf a lot. So, not coming, definitely was not a country club kind of a style background when I grew up as a kid. We were always clawing to go get places to play, and so I would, when I got that job at Oswego Lake Country Club, for me that was just like just an unbelievable ticket to like play at a place with like awesome facilities and practice facilities and a course that was awesome. And going down to Eugene, it was really hard to go find a place to play because basically had to go pay where you go play, and I couldn't get to where I wanted to get there either.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how I felt too. I mean, certainly changed a little bit for a period of time, but like River Ridge isn't really there anymore, and that was kind of a place I like to sort of mess around. So when you were at Oswego Lake, you said that Mark was an assistant. I would say that from my experience, Mark is an awesome golf professional, and he's an awesome guy. He's probably an awesome big brother. I don't know. Sometimes he's probably okay. But I would say that working there, once he became an assistant, that did probably put a little bit of extra pressure on you because you're carrying the Tunstill last name just like him. What were some things and maybe stories that you'd share about being Oswego Lake that we share with us that we'd find fun?
I think that's where, when I probably started, when I finished college, or in the middle of college, I was probably a 2 handicap, nothing to the level where you want to play collegiate golf. And working at Oswego over the summers, I just kind of gradually got better and better. At the time I was there were a couple of really, really good other players. Chris Holzgang was a member there, and he was going out on the Australasian tour and playing, he won Long Beach Open, and he was playing successfully, won the Oregon Amateur at the time I was there. And then Craig Kanata was a member there as well. Craig went on to the PGA Tour for a number of years and still a PGA professional down in, I think he's still at the Woodlands down in Texas. But the four of us, I was kind of the fourth, maybe there'd be a spot I could play and join those guys as a fourth somewhere every now and then. And just watching the way they played and not wanting to get to be the fourth best score of that foursome. And then I got to be the third best score of that foursome. And then every now and then I beat one of them. And, but just watch the way they practiced and the way they kind of worked on their game all the time was just invaluable. And then additionally, watching Brent Murray, Brent would work, every single day and never work on his game, and then go out and play in a tournament and finish fourth and come back home. And it's like, when you surround yourself by better players, it just makes you want to work on your game and makes you, you just pick up those little small tidbits here and there where you practice with them or play with them and watch what they do and the decisions they make. It's just invaluable. There was never a time, I think, that one of them sat down and said, you really got to do this, but just watching the way they, observing what they do, you learn, you absorb a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes if you go back maybe to Oswego Lake in the last couple of years, is it just kind of shocking to see how some of the improvements they've made in terms of some of the tree removal, and then the Murray Hill, they built that great short game named after Brent Murray, that short game area up there on the hill. And just imagine, I actually think too, if you really learn to play with those people and you're on a golf course that you have to learn how to hit side hill lies and downhill, uphill, gauge yardages like that's invaluable to travel with that information at practice.
It is. It's always weird to go back to a place like that. I left there in 92. So what's that, 33 years ago, right? So there we go. So yeah, a lot of changes. Every course has a lot of changes, and that course has changed our pro shop a few times, the configuration of that and stuff. It's kind of cool to look at. I think the other thing I'd probably add, the difference between, and I'll probably brag about my club a little bit here. The difference between Oswego at that time when I was there was really, there was just a very small group of people that were really, really good at golf. Basically the head pro and those two members were like exceptional players. And the rest of the membership at that time, I can't remember anybody that was anything outstanding whatsoever. When I took my first assistant position, which was over here at Columbia Edgewater, and I started at Columbia, all of a sudden I'm surrounded by 50 people that could beat me. And it was just like, wow, I think I'm kind of good, but all of a sudden you watch these people going out and shooting 66s, and this member just qualified for the USAM, and this member just won the PNGA, and this person's going to this college, and it's like, oh, this is what it's like to be at a club where, I mean, I think the culture of golf at the club I'm at now is just, it's second to none. I mean, it's a golf club of serious golfers, and that just really, that actually fueled my passion. Like, whoa, I need to really now work on my game. If I think I'm going to be a PGA professional, this is a bar that now I gotta jump a little bit higher to go with that bar.
Yeah, and I totally get what you're saying. I mean, Oswego Lake is a more of a pure country club, and because of Columbia Edgewater's location, you have a lot of members that don't live real close.
We get a survey done annually, every other annual year, but our survey vendor, he does surveys all over the nation. And what resonated when he last gave us a little summary of the survey results was that our members travel an average distance longer than any average distance of any club he does in America. And it's partially because, we have a great year-round golf facility. We have great practice facilities. Of course, it's in good shape year-round. We had a big storm hit last night. We got branches down everywhere, but when the crew's out there cleaning it up, it'll be people walking down the fairways today with no mud on their pants, range is open. But it just draws people from all over the metro that are willing to drive by maybe other private clubs, and because they know that this place has, great short game area, extra putting greens, grass tee all the time. It's a pretty good golf situation at the club.
My first official day working in this section for the PGA of America was March 19th, 2012. And, you were the head pro at the time. And I remember just being shocked when you said, yeah, tomorrow, March 19th or March 20th, we're going to be off the path for the pro assistant. And I remember thinking, what? Like, what? And everybody else in the room in the board meeting, I was the new kid on the block. Jeff Beaudry was still the career consultant, and everybody, including, just everybody except for you, who had this, what? Like, you're kidding, right? And you were like, well, it's either you're getting out there with carts or you're walking, because there's no paths, because we don't need.
Yeah, we're probably one of the few clubs around that does not have a continuous cart path, mostly because we don't need one. We're generally, like today, we got carts going on the fairways, and we've got a lot of rain. We got a lot of rain coming, but we're dry enough. We drain super. We've been investing in drainage for literally 50 years of drainage and pumps and drain tile and top dressing, etc. Yeah, we're able to take on events because of that we normally a little more risky. We always have the last Pro-Am late October for the Oregon PGA, because we know we can handle it in late October. We'll be in excellent shape in late October, where some clubs, they might not be able to accommodate a tournament that time of year because they don't drain as well.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting too, between the two golf courses. I mean, somebody might say at face value, Columbia is a flat golf course compared to Oswego Lake, and that's true, but there's plenty of up and down, and there's plenty of side hills, and like just number 2, it seems like a fairly simple hole, but don't play a direct hard shot.
Yeah, we were blessed when the architect A.V. McCann designed this course. He and the team did not move much ground, and since then, the fairways have basically been not very much touched over 100 years. And you really look at the golf course and you kind of walk it and you look next to the Columbia River, you realize that this at one point was river bottom. This was probably, flooded land, 100 years ago, 200, 500 years ago or whatever. And so that's basically just the contours of sand moving through flood stages and whatnot. And we've never changed that. There's some clubs around in the Portland Metro that they've literally flattened their fairways purposefully, and they lose that character of kind of having that undulation. I won't talk bad about other clubs, but there's a few clubs that have literally taken every fairway and they're just completely flat. They took out all the character of their fairways and made them flat because they thought that was better for, the members or the golfers that play there. But you'd argue that, it's probably more fun to play off of uneven lies every now and then too.
Well, yeah, I mentioned number 2, but I always think about number 8. Number 8, you hit it a little too far or not far enough. Now you're hitting off of a weird lie or challenging lie towards a green that's canted in a way that it's actually fair. It's almost easier for somebody that sort of slaps it up there because it'll receive their slice. But if you're a good player, a draw player off of a hook lie, that takes some skill to not overdraw that shot. So yeah, it's a great place to work in your game.
16 is another fairway where you long par 4 where you hit a good tee shot, it kind of crests over, maybe in the winter just gets a little bit down the hill a little bit. So you often are playing a 200-yard shot with the ball below your feet. It's always fun, and it makes you, obviously challenging courses make you learn how to hit shots that you don't always face when you're playing a flat golf course. So having that variability, I think it yields better players to the golf course.
So when you went in 1992, you said, if I recall, you said you moved to Columbia Edgewater and you were an assistant. Who was on the team around there?
Yeah, I graduated in 92, and then I worked Oswego Lake that last summer. And then that time frame, you really every Monday you open your mail and look up the assistant professional position, the bulletin. We used to get the mailer from the section or the chapter at the time. And so the head professional was Dan Hickson, and Dan had a pretty good staff. He had Chuck Cyber was the first assistant. Chuck DeSilva was an assistant. Mike Coppage was on staff. And those are the notable names. So I was contemplating that seasonal fourth assistant spot. And I had another opportunity at that same time to be an assistant at Colwood. And the Colwood job was year round, kind of, guaranteed $7 an hour. Columbia was a, 6-month, $7 an hour. And I really had to kind of struggle with that decision. Luckily, Brent Murray, I never forget the day I kind of asked Brent for some advice. He said, let's go play 9 and we'll talk about it a little bit. And so Brent kind of gave me the advice, and, you really should look at this job at Columbia Edgewater. It's a great place to be, and et cetera. And as we get done, and, I really appreciate his advice, and we're getting done at 9 holes, and Brent shot 30. And I'm thinking, Brent, do you want to go play the back 9? And he's like, no, it's no big deal. I was like, Brent, I've never seen anybody shoot 30. Don't you want to finish the back 9? He's like, no, it's no big deal. So that taught me a lot. Right? He wasn't even paying attention to really his game. He just happened to shoot 30, right? No big deal. But that was great advice. I really appreciate Brent just basically pushing me to choose a facility where you have opportunity to grow and learn a lot. And that's, I was very fortunate with that.
Was Bunny Mason still around at that point?
Bunny was still actively kind of working and designing courses when I first started here. He started to teach for Dan, a couple seasons after that, maybe 2 or so seasons. He started to become a teaching pro out there and kind of spent more and more time. So Bunny was, pretty much here year round from approximately 95 until his passing in 2012. I think I have that date right. I have his little remembrance over there. But yeah, so Bunny I got to spend about 15, 17 seasons with Bunny, and great mentor. Always would come in and just give you little tidbits, and but learned a lot from Bunny. And then later on, Dan left in 99, and so Bunny kind of stayed there. And then, we talked about that transition. I was very fortunate to get the head professional job in that time frame. And when I came back, I kind of inherited the old head pros team and kind of had to rebuild that team a little bit. Lost one person, and but it was nice to have Bunny there at that time too. New head professional. I was quite young at the time, 28-year-old head professional at a pretty good club. And he really helped give me some good advice on just some big decisions, hiring and kind of training and kind of what to look for when I'm looking for another assistant. Very helpful to have something like that. Bunny operated very successful pro shops for decades and open facilities, and, definitely knew how to kind of get a solid staff in place.
I think the one you just highlighted something that I've actually always shared with many people is that actually I had someone like that in my green grass career. And the benefit of that is that, Bunny probably he'd just roll in and he'd say, "Hey, BT, you got a second? I want to," and you'd be like, "Sure." And let's shut the door. And then he would sort of say, "Oh, by the way, I see something happening out here or over here. I heard this." And he whispered to you, and you were smart enough, I'm betting, to go, "Hey, thank you for letting me know that," because I wasn't aware.
Bunny would, he was around enough. He could always catch me at a time where it was just, maybe the two of us in the shop. And as a head pro, I did like to cover the counter a lot. So I'd always kind of make sure that members got to see me daily, et cetera. But yeah, Bunny would always just at the right time, just kind of say, "Hey, you might want to take a look over here. You might want to, this is something to think about here." But the one funny thing about Bunny, little funny story, is whenever Bunny was done with a conversation, they'd be talking to you, "Hey, Monty, what about this? What this?" And you'd answer back, and Bunny would just He never said goodbye. He would just turn his back and just leave. But now, in all teasing, Buddy was, I mean, a huge advocate for the staff. I mean, he was a courtesy member at the time, but definitely was a fellow staff person. And obviously, for those that don't know, Buddy was the head professional here in the, I want to say, I'd have to look up my history book over here, but 40, 50 years before, I was a head professional, and then went on to open Bach Butte and design golf courses and open up other facilities. So Bunny had a good knowledge, especially a lot of the older members knew Bunny, and I appreciated him having an ambassador for the club out on the range, walk up and down, giving people swing tips. And
I never got to meet him, unfortunately, because again, never met him. I mean, he passed before I really got up here. And there's a few people like that where it's like, oh, dang, I wish I would have got a chance, because I did grow up in the Portland area, but I wasn't really I wasn't in golf. It took me a while to kind of figure it out, like, similar to your sort of path. But I've heard awesome stuff about him. He's one of those, definitely a legend who deserves to be brought up in his sort of legacy. Definitely deserves that. If I recall, one of the things that you were the first assistant for Dan, and then you actually got the opportunity to go to Langdon. And can you kind of just talk about a little bit about that? Because I've recounted that story that you told me a couple times, and the value of that, doing that in your career. I think it made you.
Yeah. So I was when I was here for 5 seasons. Dan had all his assistants go on to head pro jobs. Chuck Cyber took the head pro job at OGA, of course, of Woodburn, and then up the ladder, we all moved. Chuck DeSilva was his first assistant then, and then Chuck DeSilva took the assistant job at the head professional job at Tri Mountains. Then Chuck DeSilva moved up. So I became the first assistant within 2 years. I was kind of Dan's right-hand person, got my Class A status. And then that job opened up at Langdon Farms, and Jeff Fote was the director of golf / drill manager at the time. And I knew Jeff a little bit, but not that well. And I thought, wow, this is a really good opportunity. And at that time, I didn't foresee, Dan leaving. If he wasn't announcing that he was thinking about leaving at that time. So I went and interviewed, luckily got the job at Langdon Farms, and worked there for 364 days. I'll remember that. And I'll get to that in a second. But, about halfway through that year, maybe 2/3 of the way through that year, the job opened back at Columbia Edgewater. Dan announced his retirement, or going to get into the golf architecture business. So a job got posted, and I was very fortunate to have one particular member really help me with that job, which was Will Sanders. Will is a great member of Columbia Edgewater, and for those that know Jeff Sanders, Jeff is Will's son. But Will, when I was at Columbia, I would play with Will. I played 9 holes with he and another really older, nice gentleman, Juan Young, who was a former president. And I just putt with Will. I'd chip with Will. I'd give him lessons here and there. But Will basically came out to Langdon one day, busy, I don't know, August day. We have, 1,000 people on property, 2 shotguns going in and out. And he just shows up unannounced and says, "Hey, I'd love to talk to you." And I was like, "Gosh, well, this is a really bad time. I got one coming in and one starting out." And he goes, "Well, I'll wait for it." And it's like, "Okay, gee, that's really nice." So I met with him. He basically talked me into applying for the head pro job, because I wasn't considering doing that. At that time, I was kind of getting groomed to take over a property for OB Sports in another area. It's probably going to either go to somewhere up in Washington or down to Nevada. Didn't really want to do that. And when I talked to Will and kind of give me some advice on what the club was looking for, it's like, yeah, I think I can do that. I think I can answer those calls. So luckily interviewed, and, came down to a couple candidates. The candidate I ran against is unfortunately a really close friend of mine. It was really tough one of us, we both deserved the job, but one of us got the job, and I've been really fortunate to be here ever since.
That actually happens quite a bit. Actually, it's actually a test of friendship, but usually maybe during the process, it gets a little bit strained, not bad, but just compared to what it normally would be. But then usually within a few months, it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Like this, you're too good a friend. It
wasn't any animosity at any of it. It's just, I think at the time I think the 1 year that I was gone at Langdon Farms with OB Sports, I did learn a lot. I learned a lot about the business side of the club. I learned a lot about, just financials and merchandising, overseeing budgets and labor and et cetera, just because they have a really strong reporting requirement, corporations typically do. And you learn a lot from that. It's definitely helped me in my current role as a drill manager of just, variances and budgets and financial, et cetera. But I think at the time that was a that was a real, when a job gets posted and a golf facility is looking to hire somebody, they often will look at what they need as they didn't have in their last person maybe. And so that was probably a higher thing than normal, was, customer service and tournament operations and running a business was pretty high on the list. And those were things luckily I'd been kind of working on, and my skill set there really improved over the last year. And I think that was kind of what was the tipping scale. They felt like, this is the right person, heading in the right direction.